This is Jenna, and I want to talk a little about storing green tomatoes. So it is like the 10th of October, and it's been getting pretty cold, so I am going to harvest my green tomatoes. Well, I already have harvested a lot of green tomatoes. These tomatoes are actually mostly gonna be green when they ripen too, because they're green zebra tomatoes. But there are also some other heirloom tomato varieties in here, such as this one and this one. So what I do is you have to make sure that they're fully grown for this to work, or they will never ripen if they're not fully grown. Like these little ones I'll take off because they'll never ripen. They'll never mature. But so I want to make sure I have a container such as this. You can see it has holes in the bottom of it for good airflow. I'm gonna make sure that they're not touching too much when I store them. I'm gonna cut them so that they still have some of the branches on them, because they will last longer, and they will the risk of rotting is less when you have the branches still on them. So these are some of the ones that I've harvested. I put this paper bag on there just so if anything does end up rotting, it doesn't go through, and it keeps the container clean as well. So these are my tomato plants mixed in with a lot of other things as well. Some of these I left because, I don't know, they look like they might rot pretty easily. This plant, this variety tomato, had a little bit of rot on the top. So if I see any of them look like they have a little bit of brown, I don't want to risk it. You can see that has a brown tinge to it. I don't want to risk it rotting and ruining the rest of the tomatoes. Oh, here's a good one. I don't want to pick it off. I want to cut it off so that it doesn't tear the tomato and rot. So, well, I have some small tomatoes in there. Here's some more that I've harvested. And here's my tomato plants. I have a lot of cherry tomatoes, and I did this last year and it worked very well. If you have tomatoes that are in varying degrees of ripeness, you want to separate them by how ripe they are, because putting a ripe tomato in with green tomatoes will make them ripen a lot faster, and maybe you want that. But if you have a lot of tomatoes, you want to have tomatoes, for a longer amount of time, so you'd rather separate them by their degree of ripeness. Now with cherry tomatoes, it's a little bit tricky, because then you'd have to cut them all apart, so I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend just cutting the bunch, and they'll end up ripening a lot faster. Thank you.